content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, sensitive topics, and explicit language that may be triggering, offensive, or sensitive subjects to some viewers and listeners. Discretion is advised. The purpose of this podcast is to explore and discuss true crime cases for entertainment and educational purposes only. This podcast does not intend to glorify or sensationalize crime, but rather aims to analyze and understand the complexities of human behavior in the criminal justice system. We encourage listeners to approach this content with empathy, critical thinking, respect for the victims and their families.
It started with silence. No break-in alarm, no screams echoing down the quiet streets of Moscow, Idaho. Just 4 college students found brutally stabbed in their beds. No motive, no suspect, no weapon. For weeks, the only thing louder than the silence was the fear, rumors, whispers, and theories flooded a nation desperate for answers. And then, out of nowhere, a name, Bryan Kohberger. A criminology PhD student, a man who studied serial killers, then allegedly became one. But this isn't a simple true crime tale. It's a case that rattled the idea of safety itself. A killer hiding in plain sight, a courtroom twist that left families divided, and a chilling question that still has no answer. Why did he do it? Tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of the monster in this lecture hall, the victims who should have been safe, and the justice system that offered a deal but no closure. This is the case of Bryan Kohberger, and nothing about this feels over. With that being said, it's time to start the show. Let's hit it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. I am your host, Winnie Schrader. A couple programming notes. First up, I would like to give my thanks and gratitude to all the support of condolences and the love and the support, thoughts that you have given Dave and I and our family through the loss of Dave's dad, Jim. Jimmy was a wonderful father-in-law to me. Almost to the day. It was actually the 5th year anniversary, July 7th of 2020. He passed away, and I was just kind of getting used to, things, learning to live without my dad, and then bam. But those 5 years I didn't have my dad. Jimmy, kind of filled that void for me, not having a dad around because I was a daddy's girl. I was a tomboy. I loved fishing, working on cars, and all that kind of stuff. And not having my dad around really left a huge gap um, within my soul. And it was nice to have Jim around, knowing that he kind of filled that void of losing my dad. So bear with us. We're going to do the best we can to get through this. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but Dave and it's kind of a tag team effort we got going on here, bouncing between 2 different states now. So I know you guys are great supporters with us, and I know you'll stick with us, but just follow us on social media to keep updates and anything to do with our podcast. But I'm going to be trying to get some best ofs type of things out for Dave, so you guys have some content, and it's some content that you guys may have missed. And you guys can always check us back out on YouTube. Dave is at the Paranormal 60. And then you can find me on YouTube at Winnie Schrader. And you guys can catch up on any episodes that you may have missed. So I say go for it. It's a lot of entertainment, and you got a lot to catch up on if you missed out. So thank you guys, and just bear with us on that. And the reason why I'm doing my episode this way is because I don't have time to edit and do a lot of, pictures and videos and things like that. But one thing I do want to kind of say is I am working on getting some subscription based content, hopefully on Patreon. And one thing I've been really wanting to do is doing like a true crime documentary series. Like, I watch true crime documentaries and I give my take on them. Sometimes maybe we can get a guest from on that documentary. Who knows? But it's going to kind of more be like this, probably audio only. Maybe we can every once in a while have a video one. So I kind of wanted to give it a test run to kind of see how you guys like it. But obviously, the big news this week when it comes to true crime is the Idaho student murders and Bryan Kohberger. Now, before he became the center of one of the most horrific modern college town murder cases in America, Bryan Kohberger was just another quiet face in a lecture hall. He was a PhD student in criminology, of course, and he was kind of a nerd about it. The kind of guy who took notes while the rest of us would like take naps in class. But on July 2nd of this year, just last week, he walked into the Idaho courtroom, looked the judge square in the eye, and he pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. And just like that, the so-called trial of the decade was basically over before it even began. Now, originally he pled not guilty, and all of a sudden, boom. And I believe originally the trial was set to start in August. So what does that mean? Why, what does that mean for the families? What does that mean for Bryan? Well, he won't be executed. That was part of his change in his plea with the plea deal. So he won't be executed, but he'll never get parole and he'll never be able to walk free again. But what we didn't get is what everybody wanted most, and that was the why. So let's rewind back a little bit and break it down. And when this happened, I believe he was 28 years old. He pled guilty to murdering all 4 of the University of Idaho students in November of 2022. In exchange, he avoided the death penalty, but he received 4 consecutive life sentences plus 10 years of burglary. Way to stick it to him. Uh, no parole, no appeal, and thanks to the plea deal, no explanation as to why he did it. Now, as Judge Stephen Hippler read the charges and asked him if he murdered Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xania Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, Kohberger calmly, with an emotional void in the tone of his voice, he said yes each time. That flat effect, no tears, no drama, just mechanical compliance, which, by the way, has stirred debate on whether he may be on the autism spectrum. There's been no formal diagnosis, just a courtroom observation. But okay, hold the phone here. I am so tired of every time they see somebody who has this blanketed emotionalist vibe to them, they always have to bring that up. My oldest son is high functioning autistic with Asperger's. He is not a killer. He is not cold, and he's not, without empathy. These are sociopaths. They did the same thing with Adam Lanza, and it really ticks me off that that's always the first thing that they mention when it comes to these type of horrific crimes. They did the same thing with Adam Lanza. They put him up on the screen and they think, oh, they say he has Asperger's or autism. No, he was a sociopath with Asperger's and autism. Okay? It's not the other way around. So please stop it. Now, prosecutors emphasize the deal avoiding years long legal circus, but to many, it felt like a quiet shortcut. Justice, yes, but also silence. Now, there is a divide with this. Now, the plea deal kind of split the families like a knife, and that's no pun intended. Kaylee Gonzalez's family was outraged. They wanted the death penalty. They called the deal mercy for a monster and slammed the state for pushing it through without fully honoring their wishes. And on the other hand, you have Madison Mogen's father and Ethan Chapin's family supporting it. For them, it spared them years of re traumatization in courtrooms and in the media. A plea that healed some, reopened wounds for others. Now, who is Bryan Kohberger? Now, let's talk about the man behind this monster. He was born November 21st, 1994. Kohberger grew up in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Oh, that's kind of a mouthful. Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, nestled in the Pocono Mountains. He was raised in the middle class family. Dad was a maintenance worker. Mom was a paraprofessional who occasionally wrote letters to newspapers defending social justice causes. Now, he has two older sisters. One is reportedly a therapist and a part time actress. As a teen, Brian struggled with obesity and was reportedly bullied for it, which is that's awful for any kid to go through. But after losing over 100 pounds while he was starting to go into high school, he started growing some confidence, and that confidence kind of turned into some arrogance, which I hate that. When it's almost like, and not to say that, smoking, I'm promoting that, but it's like those people who quit smoking and then all they do is bash the people who are still smoking. It's just like one of those things. Or when people go on diets and they chastise you for still eating the normal food. It's just like, okay. Um, Anywho, I digress. Now, some of his former classmates described him as socially awkward, sometimes condescending, and obsessed with criminal psychology, which I am too, but I'm not going to go and do what he did. His journals from that era tell a darker tale, though. Brian suffered from something called visual snow syndrome, a rare neurological condition where your entire field of vision is filled with flickering static like a broken TV screen. People who suffer from this syndrome, they kind of see tiny moving little dots, staticky things in their vision. Sometimes it's more noticeable in like kind of low light settings. So, like in movie theaters, probably like it would probably trigger something like that. But it also comes with a lot of other symptoms too. You can get kind of those after image or trailing images. And it's almost like looking at uh, your TV screen with the snow on it, and then you start seeing objects within that. That's kind of a good visualization of what they see. But it also comes along with, tinnitus, ringing in the ears, which I suffer from, which I hate. It drives me insane. Anxiety, depression, irritability, isolation. I mean, I can't imagine, while you're going out and trying to be social, and that's the vision that you're looking at people with. And it's not one of those things where it's all the time. It's kind of like a flare up type thing. It also comes along with like really bad headaches and migraines, sensitivity to light. I mean, there's a lot of things that visual snow syndrome can cause a person to kind of, be a little off. They don't know what causes it. Some suggest it's kind of a hyperactivity within certain parts of the brain. Maybe if he is on the spectrum, maybe it has something to do with the processes and how his brain processes things, and it's maybe hitting a wire it's not supposed to. Who knows? And I'm sure they're going to be doing lots of study on him with this while he's in jail. So growing up with this syndrome, he went through therapies and things like that. And, he would sit there and like to his therapist, he would describe seeing his family and feel nothing. Like life was like a video game to him. He wrote about having self-harming thoughts and feeling emotionally detached from people. And yes, that can be a sign of autism, but having that, saying that he just by looking at his family and feeling nothing, acknowledging that that is not autism, that's a sociopathic behavior, and he's a psychopath and a sociopath. That's what that is. That has nothing to do with being autistic or having Asperger's and not having any empathy. Those children on the inside, they do. They just don't know how to express it on the outside. So, yeah, God, see, that's why it just pisses me off that they do that. But anywho, I digress again.
Have you ever felt like something or someone was trying to tell you something? That inner nudge, that quiet whisper from the universe, with intuition sharpened by years of spiritual connection and a deep-rooted gift. Winnie Schrader delivers readings that are compassionate, insightful, and shockingly accurate. Whether you're facing a crossroads healing from heartache, or just curious what the cards reveal, Winnie creates a safe, sacred space to explore your journey. This isn't fortune cookie fluff. This is honest, intuitive guidance from someone who's helped hundreds find clarity, closure, and confidence. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Book your session now at lovelotustarot.com and take control of your journey. That's lovelotustarot.com. Winnie's sessions are personal, powerful, and often life-changing. That's lovelotustarot.com.
Now, one thing that does fall under the autism spectrum is obsessing with things, and you know, people like that, when they find something that they really have interest in, they don't just, oh, I'm gonna go watch a documentary on that. They have to go all in, 110%, pedal to the metal. I mean, my son, who is a pilot now, when he was young, that's all he did was obsess about airplanes. And I mean, eventually, I'm glad that he chose something to obsess about that is a great career path for him and not just collecting and knowing everything there is to know about every single Pokemon there is. But people like Bryan Kohberger, obviously he globbed onto true crime, and he was kind of interested in the psychology of it, which I am too. Like I said, it's that's nothing out of the ordinary. What's out of the ordinary is going into this. I guarantee you, he should have been clinically diagnosed as a sociopath and a psychopath at a very young age because he was exhibiting those behaviors. Now, Kohlberger wasn't just a true crime fan. He like immersed himself in criminology. He earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in criminal justice from DeSales University, where he studied under none other than the Dr. Katherine Ramsland. Yes, that Katherine Ramsland. She is the author who co-wrote books with the BTK killer Dennis Rader, the woman whose forensic psychology courses dive deep into serial killer behaviors. Now, if you're a huge Dexter fan, this is the plot to the last season of Dexter. Spoiler alert. All I'm going to say is that there was a character, Dr. Evelyn Vogel, who was known as the Psychopath Whisperer. She was a neuropsychiatrist who specialized in the study of psychopaths, particularly in children exhibiting psychopathic traits, who basically groomed serial killers without even knowing it. And that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, I mean, literally, it's the plot to season 8 of Dexter, which I'm so excited that Dexter Resurrection. Oh, I can't wait. Now, she never said she saw any red flags with him, but, you know, she did raise some ethical questions. She's like, did I inspire him in some way? And yet she concluded that education may lead individuals down many paths, and she hopes her work has inspired law enforcement more than anything else. But yeah, I mean, could you imagine being the mentor to a guy who wants to basically be in your position, and he does that, and you're like, oh, and I'm sure you go back at every moment you had with him, like, did I say something there? What was it that? What did I do that triggered him to think that this was okay? And here's something that'll make your peaches shrivel a little bit. Uh, Kohberger also conducted creepy academic surveys asking ex-cons how they selected their victims. Oh my God, you can't make this stuff up. Seriously. Now, in 2022, he enrolled as a PhD criminology student at Washington State University, just 10 miles from the University of Idaho. Now, he was a teaching assistant, one that the students described as harsh and cold. And around the time of the murders, some noticed him becoming more erratic, unhinged, and more isolated. Now, also during this time, he's also like tried to interact with women and date women, and it seemed like he didn't even know how to act around them appropriately. He went on a blind date with one girl that was talked about in the Peacock documentary, the Idaho student murders, and she was saying like he was doing like weird things throughout the whole date, and like he would sit and like smell her, and she's like, "Are you smelling me?" And he's like, "No, I'm not." I mean, it was just the way he would interact with women, and he was rejected a lot because of that behavior. Now, he just obviously did not learn how to interact with people appropriately. And it seemed like whenever he would get rejected, he had this arrogance about him, like he was probably God's gift to women. I don't know. But he did not take rejection well. And they think that that could have been kind of the catalyst or the motive of why this happened. Now, he even applied for an internship with a local police department, claiming he wanted to understand how emotions affect decision making, which makes this timeline even more chilling. Okay, so let's go to the night of the murders. It's November 13th, 2022. It's a Saturday night, a normal college night, pizza parties, bar crawls, you know. Ethan Chapin and Zaina Kernodle, they were attending a frat party together. They were boyfriend girlfriend as well. And then Gonsalves and Mogan hit up the corner club downtown. Then they stopped by a grub truck around 1:30 a.m. laughing, chatting, full of life. They were on some like a CCT, some type of camera, security camera on campus there. Now, by 2 a.m., all four were back home at 1122 Kings Road. The two other roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, were already in bed. Now, these two roommates were already at home, in bed, sleeping. And then came the horror. Between 3:29 and 4:04, surveillance caught a white Hyundai Elantra circling the neighborhood. That car, registered to Kohberger, was making passes like a predator stalking its prey. Now, around 4 a.m., Zaina, who was still up, received her DoorDash delivery. Minutes later, surviving roommates reported hearing some noises, thuds, a voice saying, "There's someone here." And later, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." When she finally opened the door, she saw a man in black clothes, a mask, bushy eyebrows, tall, athletic, walk past her and exit through the sliding glass door. She locked her door, not knowing what horrific chaos he left in his wake. Now she lived, and she'll live with that moment forever. The house was a 3-floor layout. Now, on the first floor, you had the surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, unharmed. Now, on the second floor, that's where Zaina and Ethan were. Now, Zaina fought back. She had defensive wounds. Her activity on social media confirms that she was alive around 4 a.m. on top of getting her DoorDash meal. Now, on the third floor, Kaylee and Maddie were found in bed together, likely sleeping when the attack began. But that's where a K-bar knife sheath was found under Madison's body. Now, that sheath had Kohberger's DNA on the snap. Now, let that sink in. He left behind his own calling card. Now, if you want to know what a K-bar knife is, it is a very big combat knife. Basically, they use it in, I believe the one he had, it had the United States Marine Corps on there, and I mean the thing was it's a big bulky knife. I mean it can do some damage, but they said that they found some touch DNA on the snap, his DNA. Now, what touch DNA is that it means that there is room for contamination. For instance, let's say I grab a bottle of lotion, I put lotion on my hands, and then my friend needs some lotion. So she takes my lotion, she puts it on her hands, and then I put it in my purse. And let's say, for instance, I have a weapon in my purse and I put that lotion bottle on top of the weapon. And then not only my DNA, but her touch DNA gets on that weapon. And then I use that weapon in a crime. They swab it, they find her DNA on it, and they're like, why is her DNA on it? But if obviously, if you can prove a trace, they usually look at it as touch DNA. But with all the other circumstantial evidence that is against Bryan. I mean, not only was he caught just circling on the ring cams around the area the night of the murders, they also pinged his cell phone many, many other nights prior to the murders. So it's not like this was a one night spur of the moment thing. He was hunting these people down. And that's where it's like, okay, that's kind of like where the missing link is how did he get connected to these four individuals? And one thing about the crime scene that is really, really hard to really wrap your head around is that it was so bloody from the stab wounds and things like that, um, that blood must have been dripping down the walls from the upper floors so much to the point where it was literally coming out the side, dripping down the foundation wall outside. Let that sink in. Now, he did turn off his phone that particular night. So when they went back and found his records, they were like, okay, so every other night he never turned off his phone except the one night that pretty much the whole house was murdered. But he turned off his phone that night, which is a classic criminal 101 move. But digital footprints don't lie. Now, his phone pinged near the house over a dozen times before the murders. Now, he changed his license plates right after the murders happened. Now, he took a cross country road trip with his dad, and he got pulled over in Indiana twice. Now, on December 30th, 2022, the FBI kicked in the door of his parents' home in Pennsylvania. They found him wearing gloves. He had been cleaning out his car. They got his DNA from his trash. It was game over for Bryan. But what prompted the police to find out who it was is because when they looked on the ring cams and saw the Elantra, um, I think they got like a partial plate or something. I don't know. They found out the car was registered to him. The question does remain: why were the two roommates, Dylan and Bethany, spared? Why that house and why those victims? Now, some say it may be linked to his veganism. Yeah, I know, weird, right? But Kaylee and Maddie both worked at a restaurant in the area that actually served really good vegan food. So they think maybe that might have been the connection where he saw them. Maybe he made some advances at them and they rebuffed him and it bruised his ego, and then all bets were off. He had a pattern of inappropriate behavior with coworkers, dates, strangers. And like I said, most of them ignored him, rejected him. They would set boundaries, and then by setting those boundaries, they became targets. Did this constant rejection just turn him into this rageful monster? And still, there is no confirmed motive. And now, thanks to the plea deal, we'll never get one. Now, Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan were just kids. They loved music, friends, food trucks, and had futures. They were murdered in a place they should have felt safest, and that was their home. And while Kohberger has now admitted to guilt, the justice system's clean little bow doesn't wrap up the grief, the confusion, the rage. There's no neat ending here. We know who, we even know how, but why? That's the part that will echo on forever and ever. Now, on July 23rd of this year, so just in a couple weeks, Bryan Kohberger will be sentenced. He will likely serve out his days in Idaho maximum security or in the Arizona desert alongside some other high-profile lifers. He'll vanish behind bars. But the names that matter, the ones we should remember, are Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. Now, 4 young lives full of dreams, laughter, late-night food runs, and inside jokes were taken into the darkness on a quiet Idaho night. Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan didn't die in a war zone. They died in their beds, sleeping, on their phones, about to eat a 4 a.m. meal from probably drinking out all night. Now, we've heard the evidence, we followed the trial, and we know who did it. But the question that still haunts every parent, every roommate, every friend who's ever walked back from a college bar or locked a bedroom door at night is why? No guilty plea can answer that. No life sentence can restore what is lost. And as we move forward, we remember the names, not the notoriety. We speak their stories louder than his, because while Bryan Kohberger may have taken their lives, he doesn't get to define their legacy. Justice may bring legal closure, but healing is a journey that continues for a lifetime. Thank you guys so much. And like I said, please follow us on social media. Follow us on YouTube at The Paranormal 60 or at Winnie Schrader. That way you can kind of keep up to date on the next couple of weeks when it comes to shows. But I would like to thank you guys so much for the support and love again. And I hope to see you guys all next week.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. And until our next case, my armchair detectives, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay aware. I'll see you right here next week on Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.